Amara's hands trembled as she held the small white pill between her fingers, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. The bedroom was dark except for the thin strip of moonlight cutting through the curtains. Her husband Chidi stood by the doorway, arms crossed, watching her with that patient smile he always wore when he brought her the evening medication. "Take it, my love," he said softly. "You know it helps you sleep." But tonight, Amara didn't swallow it. She pretended to, tilting her head back and making the motion, then tucking the pill beneath her tongue. She took a sip of water, smiled weakly at Chidi, and lay back down on the bed. "Good girl," he whispered, brushing her forehead with his lips. "Rest now." He turned off the bedside lamp and left the room, closing the door gently behind him. Amara waited. Her mouth was dry, her pulse racing. The pill dissolved slightly under her tongue, bitter and chalky, but she didn't dare spit it out yet. She counted the seconds. 1 minute. 2 minutes. 3. Then she heard it. Footsteps. But not heading toward the living room where Chidi usually watched television after she fell asleep. These footsteps were moving toward the back of the house. Toward the guest room they never used. Amara slipped out of bed as quietly as she could, her bare feet silent on the cold tile floor. She tiptoed to the door and opened it just a crack. The hallway was dim, lit only by the small night light plugged into the wall socket. She could see Chidi's shadow moving at the far end of the corridor. He was opening the guest room door. And he wasn't alone. A woman's voice. Low and familiar. Laughing softly. Amara's stomach dropped. She pressed herself against the wall, her breathing shallow, her mind racing. Who was in their house? Why had Chidi been drugging her every night? How long had this been happening? She wanted to scream. She wanted to run. But something inside her, something stronger than fear, made her stay perfectly still and listen. The voices grew clearer. The woman spoke again, and this time Amara recognized it. It was her sister, Ngozi. Amara's knees nearly gave out. She covered her mouth to keep from gasping aloud. Ngozi, who had moved in with them 6 months ago after losing her job. Ngozi, who Amara had trusted with everything. Ngozi, who she had comforted through every breakup, every failure, every moment of weakness. And Chidi, her husband of 4 years. The man who held her every morning and told her she was his queen. The man who prayed with her before every meal. The man who promised her the world. They were in the guest room together. Right now. While Amara was supposed to be unconscious, drugged into a deep sleep she could never wake from until morning. She heard Chidi's voice now, clearer than before. "She's out. We have at least 6 hours. Are you sure the pills are working?" Ngozi's voice. Cautious. Almost excited. "I've been giving them to her for 3 months. She doesn't suspect a thing." 3 months. Amara felt the room spin. 3 months of being drugged every single night. 3 months of waking up groggy, confused, feeling like her mind was wrapped in fog. 3 months of Chidi telling her she was just stressed from work, that she needed rest, that he was taking care of her. He had been poisoning her. Slowly. Deliberately. And her own sister had been part of it. But Amara forced herself to keep listening. Her entire body was shaking now, but she couldn't move. She had to know. She had to understand what was happening in her own home, under her own roof, while she lay unconscious night after night. "Did you transfer the money yet?" Ngozi asked. "Money. Of course. It always came down to money." Amara had a good job. She was a senior accountant at one of the largest firms in Lagos, earning well, saving diligently. She and Chidi had a joint account, but she also had a private savings account her grandmother had set up for her years ago. An account worth over 12 million naira. An account only she had access to. Or so she thought. Chidi laughed. "Almost done. Just need her signature on 2 more documents, and everything transfers to me. Then we're free." "And after that?" Ngozi's voice dropped to a whisper. "What happens to her?" There was a long pause. Amara held her breath. "Don't worry about that," Chidi said finally. "I'll handle it." Amara didn't wait to hear more. She backed away from the door, her heart hammering, her mind screaming. She stumbled back to the bedroom, climbed into bed, and pulled the covers over herself, squeezing her eyes shut. She wasn't safe. She had never been safe. And now she had to figure out how to survive. What would you do if you discovered the person you trusted most was plotting against you? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to see how Amara fights back, make sure you subscribe to this channel, because this story is just getting started. Amara lay in bed, her eyes squeezed shut, every muscle in her body rigid. She heard Chitty's footsteps returning down the hallway. The bedroom door creaked open. She forced her breathing to slow, to mimic the deep, unconscious rhythm she'd had every other night for the past 3 months. The mattress dipped as Chitty sat on the edge of the bed. She felt his hand brush her cheek, gentle, almost loving. It took everything in her not to flinch away. "Sleep well, Amara," he whispered. Then he stood and left the room again, pulling the door closed behind him. Amara waited 15 more minutes before she dared to move. When she finally opened her eyes, tears were streaming down her face. She wiped them away quickly and sat up, her mind racing through everything she'd just learned. Chitty was stealing from her. Her own husband. And Ngozi, her baby sister, the girl she'd practically raised after their mother died, was helping him do it. But how long had this been planned? When had it started? Amara thought back to the beginning, to the day she'd first met Chitty Okonkwo at her friend Zainab's wedding reception 3.5 years ago. He'd been charming, confident, a civil engineer with his own consulting firm, or so he'd said. He wore an expensive watch and drove a sleek black Mercedes. He'd approached her at the buffet table, complimenting her gelly head wrap and making her laugh with stories about the bride and groom's chaotic wedding planning. "You have a beautiful smile," he'd said. "I'd like to see it again. Can I take you to dinner?" Amara had been cautious at first. She was 31 then, focused on her career, tired of men who wanted her money or her connections. But Chitty seemed different. He paid for everything, never asked about her salary, never seemed impressed by her job title. He talked about building a future together, about partnership and respect. Her friends loved him. Her father, who lived in their hometown of Enugu, approved after their first meeting. Even Ngozi, who'd been suspicious of every man Amara had ever dated, had pulled her aside after meeting Chitty and said, "Sister, this one is good. Don't let him go." They'd married 14 months later in a beautiful ceremony at the Civic Center. Amara had been so happy that day, so certain she'd found her partner for life. The first year of marriage had been wonderful. Chitty was attentive, romantic, supportive. He encouraged her when she got promoted to senior accountant. He rubbed her feet after long days at work. He never complained when she had to travel for business. But looking back now, Amara could see the small signs she'd ignored. The way Chitty had insisted they open a joint account immediately after the wedding. "We're one now," he'd said. "No secrets between husband and wife." The way he'd asked detailed questions about her grandmother's inheritance, the account she'd mentioned only once in passing. "You should tell me these things," he'd said when she'd been vague about the amount. "I'm your husband. I need to know our full financial picture." The way he'd suggested Ngozi move in with them when she'd lost her teaching job at a private school in Abuja. "Family takes care of family," he'd said. "Besides, she can help around the house while you're working so hard." And then, 3 months ago, the sleeping pills had started. Amara remembered the night clearly now. She'd complained about stress at work, about a difficult audit that was keeping her up at night. Chitty had come home the next day with a prescription bottle. "My friend is a doctor," he'd explained. "I told him about your insomnia. These will help you rest properly. Doctor's orders." She trusted him. Of course she had. He was her husband. The first night she took the pill, she'd slept for 12 hours straight and woken up feeling drugged and disoriented. Chitty had been so concerned, so caring. "You were exhausted, my love. Your body needed the rest." After that, the pills became routine. Every night, Chitty would bring her one white pill and a glass of water. Every night, she would swallow it without question. Every morning, she would wake up groggy, struggling to remember her dreams, feeling like she'd lost hours of her life. She'd mentioned it to her colleague Funmi 2 weeks ago. "I feel like I'm in a fog all the time." Funmi had frowned. "Are you taking something? You seem different lately." "Just sleeping pills. Chitty got them for me." "Did you go to the doctor yourself?" "No, but Chitty's friend prescribed them. Funmi had given her a long look. Amara, you're a smart woman. You should never take medication without seeing a doctor yourself. You don't even know what's in those pills. Amara had brushed off the concern. She trusted Chitty. She'd believed he had her best interests at heart. What a fool she'd been. Now, lying in the darkness of her bedroom, Amara understood the full picture. The pills weren't just to make her sleep. They were to keep her unconscious while Chitty and Ngozi did, what exactly? Went through her documents? Forged her signature? Transferred her money? She thought about Chitty's words. Just need her signature on 2 more documents and everything transfers to me. 2 more documents. Which meant some documents had already been signed. Amara's blood ran cold. She kept all her important papers in a locked filing cabinet in the study. Birth certificate, property deeds, bank statements, investment portfolios. She had the only key, or so she thought. She slipped out of bed again and crept toward the study. The house was quiet now. She could hear the television playing softly in the living room. Chitty must have finished whatever he was doing with Ngozi and settled in for his usual late-night routine. The study door was ajar. Amara pushed it open slowly, wincing when it creaked. She waited, listening for any movement. Nothing. The filing cabinet stood in the corner. Amara pulled the key from its hiding place behind a framed photo of her late mother and unlocked the top drawer. Everything looked normal at first. Her passport, her certificates, her property documents. But when she pulled out the folder containing her bank statements, her hands began to shake. The statements were there, but they'd been handled recently. She could tell by the way they were stacked, not in chronological order the way she always kept them. And there were photocopies. Fresh photocopies that she hadn't made. She grabbed her phone from her pocket and opened her banking app, something she hadn't done in weeks. She'd been too tired, too foggy-headed to keep track of her finances the way she usually did. The screen loaded. Amara's vision blurred. Her savings account, the one with 12 million naira, now showed a balance of 800,000. Over 11 million naira was gone. Amara just lost everything she'd worked for. But she's not going to take this lying down. What would you do in her position? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like this video if you're hooked on this story. Amara's legs gave out. She sank to the floor, her phone clutched in her trembling hand, staring at the numbers on the screen. Over 11 million naira. Gone. Years of saving. Her grandmother's gift. Her security. Her future. All of it stolen by the man who promised to love and protect her. She wanted to scream. She wanted to storm into the living room and confront Chitty right now, to claw at his face, to demand answers. But something stopped her. If she confronted him now, what would happen? He was bigger, stronger. And Ngozi would side with him. That much was clear. Amara would be outnumbered in her own home. They could hurt her. They could finish whatever plan they'd started. She needed to be smart. She needed to think like the accountant she was, methodical, strategic, patient. Amara took a deep breath and forced herself to focus. She went through the rest of the filing cabinet, checking every document. Her property deed for the small apartment she'd bought before marriage, still there, but photocopied. Her investment portfolio statements, also photocopied. Her insurance papers, the same. They were building a complete financial profile. But why photocopy everything if they'd already taken the money? What were the 2 more documents Chitty had mentioned? Then she saw it. At the bottom of the drawer, a document she didn't recognize. A transfer of ownership form for her apartment. The one she'd purchased with her own money 3 years before she even met Chitty. The form was partially filled out, with her forged signature at the bottom, but the date field was blank. They were going to take her property too. Amara photographed everything with her phone. The forged signature, the photocopied documents, the bank statements. Evidence. She would need evidence. She put everything back exactly as she'd found it and locked the cabinet. Then she returned to the bedroom, her mind working through her next steps. First, she needed to understand the full extent of the theft. Second, she needed allies, people she could trust. Third, she needed to protect whatever assets she had left. But most importantly, she needed to keep pretending. Chidi and Ngozi couldn't know she'd discovered their plan. Not yet. The next morning, Amara woke to the smell of breakfast cooking. She felt genuinely groggy this time. She'd barely slept after what she'd discovered. She dragged herself out of bed and shuffled to the kitchen, playing the role of the drugged, unsuspecting wife. Ngozi was at the stove, frying plantains and eggs. She turned and smiled brightly when Amara entered. "Good morning, sister. You slept well." Amara's stomach churned looking at her. This was the little girl she'd paid school fees for when their father couldn't afford it. The teenager she'd counseled through heartbreak. The young woman she'd welcomed into her home without a second thought. "Yes," Amara said, keeping her voice flat and tired. "Very well." "Good." Chidi already left for a site inspection, but he said to make sure you eat before work. Ngozi plated the food and set it in front of Amara with that same bright smile. Amara forced herself to eat, though every bite felt like swallowing rocks. She watched Ngozi move around the kitchen, humming softly, acting like the devoted sister she'd always pretended to be. "Ngozi," Amara said carefully, "have you been looking for jobs lately?" Her sister's smile faltered just slightly. "Here and there." "Why?" "Just wondering. You've been here 6 months now. I thought maybe you'd want your own place again." "Oh, sister, you know I'm helping you out. Besides, Chidi says there's no rush. You both have been so generous." Ngozi's eyes flickered away as she said it. Generous. They'd been stealing from her and calling it generosity. Amara finished her breakfast and got ready for work. As she drove to the office, she called her bank from the car, using the hands-free system. "First Bank of Nigeria, how may I help you?" "Yes, I need to speak to someone about my account. There have been some transactions I don't recognize. Can I have your account number, please?" Amara provided it and was transferred to the fraud department. A woman named Mrs. Adelik came on the line. "Mrs. Okonkwo, I see several large transfers from your account over the past 3 months. Can you tell me which ones you're questioning?" "All of them," Amara said, her voice tight. "I didn't authorize any transfers over the past 3 months." There was a pause. "Mrs. Okonkwo, the transfers were all made with proper authorization. They required both your account number and your PIN, plus signature verification for amounts over 1 million naira." Amara's hands gripped the steering wheel. "What signature verification?" "We have signed transfer forms on file. Would you like to come into the branch to review them?" "Yes. Today." "What time?" "We close at 4, but I'll be here until 5 if you need the extra time." "I'll be there at 4:30. Amara hung up and immediately called her best friend and colleague, Funmi. They'd worked together for 6 years, and Funmi was the only person at the firm Amara trusted completely. "Amara, I was just thinking about you. How are you feeling?" "Funmi, I need your help. Can we talk privately? Today?" The concern in Funmi's voice was immediate. "Of course. What's wrong?" "Not over the phone. Can you meet me at the bank at 4:30? First Bank, Victoria Island branch." "I'll be there." "Amara, you're scaring me." "I'm scared too," Amara admitted. "But I need to handle this carefully. I'll explain everything when I see you." The day dragged on. Amara sat at her desk, pretending to work while her mind raced through everything she knew. She pulled up her transaction history on her computer and went through it line by line. The first transfer had been made exactly 3 months ago. 500,000 naira to an account she didn't recognize. Then another transfer 2 weeks later. 1 million naira. Then another. And another. Each one larger than the last, each one requiring her signature, signatures she'd never written while conscious. Chidi had been drugging her and forging her signature for 3 months. How many nights had she been unconscious while he moved her hand across documents? How many times had he practiced her signature until he could replicate it perfectly? The thought made her sick. At 4:15, Amara left the office and drove to the bank. Funmi was already waiting outside, her face creased with worry. "Amara, what's going on? Come inside. You need to see this." They met with Mrs. Adelik in a private office. The banking officer spread out a series of transfer forms across the desk. Each one bore Amara's signature, or what looked like her signature. "These were all submitted by your husband," Mrs. Adelik explained. Mr. Chidi Okonkwo. He presented your identification and these signed forms. Everything appeared to be in order. Amara picked up one of the forms, studying the signature. It was good. Almost perfect. But it wasn't hers. She could see the tiny differences, the way the curved, the angle of the final, the pressure of the pen strokes. This isn't my signature, she said firmly. These are forgeries. Mrs. Adelik's expression grew serious. Mrs. Okonkwo, are you saying your husband has been conducting fraudulent transactions? Yes. I'm saying exactly that. Funmi grabbed Amara's hand. Oh my God, Amara. What has he done? He's been drugging me, Amara said, her voice steady despite the tears building in her eyes. Every night for 3 months, he's been giving me sleeping pills. Strong enough to knock me out for hours. And while I was unconscious, he was forging my signature and stealing my money. Mrs. Adelik stood up immediately. This is a serious criminal matter. We need to freeze your accounts right away and contact the police. No, Amara said quickly. Not yet. Amara, if he's forged your signature? I know. But if we freeze the accounts now, he'll know I've discovered what he's doing. I need more time. I need to understand the full extent of this, and I need to protect myself before I make any moves. Funmi squeezed her hand tighter. Amara, you're not safe in that house. I know. But I need evidence. Real evidence that will stand up in court. I need to catch him in the act. Mrs. Adelik looked troubled. Mrs. Okonkwo, I understand, but... Please, Amara said. Just give me a few days. Keep these documents on file. I'll be back with a lawyer and we'll handle this properly. But right now, I need him to think everything is normal. The banker hesitated, then nodded slowly. I'll document everything we discussed today. But please be careful. If your husband is capable of this, there's no telling what else he might do. That night, Amara returned home with a plan forming in her mind. She would keep taking the pills, or pretending to. She would gather more evidence. She would find out where her money had gone and who else might be involved. And then, when she had everything she needed, she would destroy Chidi Okonkwo and her treacherous sister. But first, she had to survive. Amara is playing a dangerous game now, pretending not to know while the people closest to her plot her downfall. Could you keep pretending if you were in her shoes? Drop your answer in the comments below. And if you want to see how she takes them down, hit that subscribe button right now. You won't want to miss what happens next. That evening, Amara sat at the dining table, pushing rice around her plate while Chidi talked about his day. He was animated, cheerful, describing a new construction project in Lekki that would supposedly bring in millions. The client is very impressed with my proposal, he said, reaching across to squeeze her hand. This could be the breakthrough we've been waiting for, my love. As if they were partners. As if he hadn't stolen over 11 million naira from her account while she lay drugged and helpless in their bed. Amara forced a smile. That's wonderful, Chidi. I'm happy for you. Ngozi emerged from the kitchen with a tray of sliced watermelon. Sister, you've barely touched your food. Are you feeling all right? Just tired, Amara said. Work has been stressful. Maybe you should take a few days off, Chidi suggested, his voice dripping with false concern. You've been looking exhausted lately. The pills are helping you sleep, but perhaps you need a real break. A break? So he could have even more time to rob her blind. Maybe, Amara murmured. I'll think about it. After dinner, Chidi brought her the white pill as usual, along with a glass of water. Amara took it from him, her heart racing beneath her calm exterior. Thank you, she said softly. She placed the pill on her tongue and took a sip of water, making the swallowing motion she'd perfected over the past 24 hours. The pill dissolved slightly, bitter against the underside of her tongue, but she kept her expression neutral. Good girl, Chidi said, kissing her forehead. Sleep well. As soon as he left the room, Amara spat the dissolved remnants into a tissue and tucked it into her pocket. She would save it. Tomorrow, she would take it to a lab and find out exactly what Chidi had been putting in her body. She lay in bed, waiting, listening. Sure enough, after 30 minutes, she heard movement in the hallway. Footsteps heading toward the guest room again. This time, Amara didn't follow. Instead, she reached under her pillow and pulled out the small voice recorder she'd purchased during her lunch break. She'd hidden it in the hallway earlier, tucked behind a decorative vase on the table outside the guest room. She would let them talk. Let them plan. Let them incriminate themselves. Tomorrow, she would retrieve the recorder and hear everything they'd said. The next morning, Amara woke early and retrieved the recorder before anyone else was awake. She locked herself in her car in the office parking lot and pressed play. At first, there was just silence and the faint sound of footsteps. Then Chitty's voice came through clearly. "She took the pill?" "Yes," Ngozi responded. "She's completely out. I checked on her 10 minutes ago. But we're almost done. I spoke to Emeka yesterday. He can process the property transfer by next week if we get her signature on the final documents." Amara's hands tightened on the recorder. Emeka. She knew that name. Emeka Nwosu was Chitty's childhood friend, a lawyer who'd attended their wedding. He was in on this too. "What about the business account?" Ngozi asked. "I'll drain that next. She has about 4 million in there. Once we have everything, we can finalize the plan." There was a pause. Then Ngozi's voice, quieter now. "And after? What happens to her after?" Chitty laughed. It was a cold sound, nothing like the warm laugh Amara had fallen in love with. "Why do you care? You'll have your share. 2 million naira, just like we agreed. Enough to start fresh wherever you want." She's still my sister, Chitty. Your sister who never gave you anything without making you feel small. Your sister who always had to be better, smarter, more successful. Don't tell me you feel sorry for her now." "I don't," Ngozi said quickly. "Too quickly. I just want to make sure we're covered. If she wakes up and finds out." "She won't. By the time she realizes what's happened, we'll be long gone. I'll file for divorce, claim she was mentally unstable. The sleeping pills will back that up. I'll get half of everything in the settlement, plus what we've already taken. You'll disappear to Ghana like we planned. And Amara will be left with nothing, wondering what happened to her perfect life." Amara stopped the recording. She couldn't listen anymore. Her hands were shaking with rage. They weren't just stealing from her. They were planning to destroy her completely. To gaslight her, make her seem unstable, take everything, and leave her broken. And Ngozi, the sister she'd raised, loved, protected, was doing this for 2 million naira. The price of betrayal was cheaper than Amara had imagined. She sat in her car for a long time, fighting back tears. She couldn't afford to break down now. She needed to stay focused. Amara drove to a private laboratory in Ikeja, one that handled confidential medical testing. She handed over the tissue containing the dissolved pill residue. "I need to know exactly what this is," she told the technician. "Every ingredient. I need a full analysis. This will take about 3 days. I'll pay extra for 24 hours. The technician nodded. "We can do that. Can I ask why you need this tested?" "I think someone is drugging me," Amara said simply. "I need proof." The woman's expression softened with concern. "We'll put a rush on it. You should have the results by tomorrow evening." Next, Amara drove to her father's lawyer in Ikoyi, a sharp-eyed woman named Barrister Okafor who had handled her grandmother's estate years ago. "Amara!" Barrister Okafor stood to embrace her. "It's been too long. What brings you here?" "I need help. Legal help. And I need everything we discuss to remain completely confidential." The lawyer's smile faded. "Of course. Sit down and tell me everything." Amara spent the next hour laying out the entire story. The sleeping pills. The forged signatures. The stolen money. The planned property theft. The voice recording. Every detail. Barrister Okafor listened without interrupting, taking notes, her expression growing darker with each revelation. "This is fraud, forgery, and potentially conspiracy," she said when Amara finished. "Your husband and sister could face serious prison time." "I want them to," Amara said firmly. "But I need to do this right. I need evidence that will hold up in court. I need to protect whatever assets I have left. And I need to make sure they can't hurt me when this comes out." "Smart," Barrister Okafor said. Too many women in your position confront their husbands immediately and end up with nothing to show for it. We'll build an airtight case. She pulled out a legal pad and started writing. First, we'll get a forensic handwriting expert to analyze those forged signatures. Second, we'll need the toxicology report on whatever he's been giving you. Third, I'll file an emergency injunction to freeze all joint accounts and prevent any property transfers. But we'll do it quietly, through a judge I trust. Your husband won't know until it's too late. What about criminal charges? We'll gather everything we need first, then go to the police with a complete case. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission takes bank fraud very seriously, especially at this scale. If we present them with evidence, recordings, expert testimony, they'll have no choice but to prosecute. Amara felt hope stirring for the first time in days. How long will this take? If we move quickly? 1 week, maybe 2. Can you maintain the pretense that long? I can, Amara said. I have to. That night, Amara went through her routine again. She pretended to take the pill. She lay in bed, listening to Chidi and Ngozi whisper in the guest room. She recorded everything. But this time, she also went through Chidi's phone while he showered. She knew his passcode. He'd never bothered to hide it from her, so confident was he in his deception. She scrolled through his messages and found exactly what she was looking for. Messages to Emeka the lawyer: have the divorce papers ready. Make sure the mental instability angle is solid. Messages to someone named Tund: account ready to receive the transfer? Last payment coming next week. Messages to Ngozi: stop worrying. She suspects nothing. By this time next month, we'll both be free and rich. And then, buried in his photo gallery, Amara found something that made her blood run cold. Pictures of her. Dozens of them. Taken while she was unconscious, drugged, helpless. Her body positioned in different ways. Her signature being forged on documents spread across the bed. He'd documented everything. His own crimes, recorded in clear detail. What kind of arrogance did it take to keep evidence like this? Did he think she'd never find it? Did he think she was that weak, that foolish, that broken? Amara copied everything to her phone. Every message, every photo, every shred of evidence. Then she deleted the transfer history so Chidi would never know she'd been there. She put his phone back exactly where she'd found it and climbed back into bed. Tomorrow, she would take everything to Barrister Okafor. Tomorrow, she would start building the case that would destroy Chidi and Ngozi. But tonight, she allowed herself one small moment of satisfaction. They thought they were hunting her. They thought they were the predators and she was the prey. They had no idea she'd been hunting them all along. Amara has turned the tables, and her betrayers don't even know it yet. Have you ever had to outsmart someone who thought they had you trapped? Share your story in the comments. And don't go anywhere. The confrontation is coming, and it's going to be explosive. 3 days later, Amara sat in Barrister Okafor's office with a folder full of evidence spread across the desk. The toxicology report had come back, and the results were damning. Zolpidem, Barrister Okafor read from the lab report. A powerful sedative hypnotic. At the dosage levels detected in your sample, this would cause deep sleep, memory impairment, and significant cognitive dysfunction. Long-term use can lead to dependency and serious health complications. He's been poisoning me for 3 months, Amara said quietly. More than that. He's been systematically disabling you. The lawyer set down the report and picked up the forensic handwriting analysis. The expert confirmed what we suspected. These signatures are forgeries and skilled ones. Your husband practiced extensively before executing these transfers. Amara thought of those photos on Chidi's phone, her unconscious body, her hand being manipulated to sign documents she'd never read. The violation of it made her skin crawl. We have enough for criminal charges, Barrister Okafor continued. Fraud, forgery, administering noxious substances, theft by conversion. The EFCC will be very interested in this case. But there's something else we need to address. She pulled out another document. I did some research on your husband's business. Chidi Okonkwo doesn't own a consulting firm. The company he claims to run doesn't exist. The business registration he showed you when you were dating? The office address? A virtual mailbox service. Amara's world tilted. What? Your husband isn't a civil engineer, Amara. I couldn't find any evidence that he ever worked in construction or engineering. No university records, no professional certifications, no tax filings for any legitimate business. But he goes to work every day. He talks about projects, clients. Where does he go? Amara realized she didn't know. She'd never visited his office. He'd always said it was too small, too messy, under renovation. He'd always met her at restaurants, at her apartment, anywhere but his workplace. Who is he? Amara whispered. That's what we need to find out. I have a private investigator I work with. With your permission, I'd like to hire him to follow your husband, find out where he really goes during the day, who he really is. Amara nodded numbly. Do it. In the meantime, I've filed the emergency injunction. As of this morning, all your joint accounts are frozen. No withdrawals, no transfers. Your individual property is protected. He can't sell or mortgage your apartment. The judge issued the order without notifying your husband, so he won't know about it until he tries to access the accounts. When will that happen? According to the voice recordings, he plans to make another large withdrawal this week. When he tries and it's denied, he'll know something is wrong. Good, Amara said, surprised by the hardness in her own voice. I want him to know. I want him to feel trapped the way he trapped me. Barrister Okafor studied her carefully. Amara, when this all comes out, things could get dangerous. If your husband realizes you've discovered everything, he might panic. Desperate people do desperate things. I know. I've been thinking about that. I think you should move out. Stay with a friend, check into a hotel. No, Amara interrupted. If I leave now, he'll know I'm onto him. I need to stay until we have everything locked down. Until the police are ready to arrest him. That could take another week. Then I'll stay another week. I've been pretending for this long. I can keep it up a little longer. The lawyer looked worried but nodded. All right, but please be very careful. Keep your phone with you at all times. I'll program my number as an emergency contact. If anything feels wrong, if you feel unsafe for even a moment, you call me and get out of that house. That afternoon, Funmi came to Amara's office and closed the door behind her. I did what you asked, she said, pulling out a folder. I checked the company records for Okonkwo Engineering Consultants. Amara, there's no such company. I searched every database we have access to. Nothing. I know, Amara said. My lawyer confirmed it this morning. Who did you marry? Funmi asked, her voice filled with concern. Who is this man? I don't know anymore. But I'm going to find out. Funmi sat down heavily. This is insane. Your husband is a fraud, your sister is helping him rob you blind, and you're still going home to them every night. Amara, this isn't safe. I know it's not safe. But I've come this far. I can't stop now. What if he hurts you? He won't. He needs me compliant and unaware, not injured or dead. An injured wife would raise questions, and Chitty doesn't want questions. He wants to drain me dry and disappear quietly. And what happens when he can't access the accounts anymore? When he realizes you've frozen everything? That was the question keeping Amara up at night. I'll handle it. How? I don't know yet. But I will. The explosion came 2 days later. Amara was in the kitchen when she heard Chitty's car screech into the driveway. The front door slammed open, and he stormed inside, his face twisted with rage. Amara, where are you? She stepped out of the kitchen, her heart pounding but her expression calm. I'm here. What's wrong? The bank accounts are frozen. I tried to make a withdrawal this morning and they said the accounts are under legal restriction. What did you do? Amara let her eyes widen with confusion. What? I didn't do anything. Are you sure? Of course I'm sure. I spoke to 3 different bank officers. All our accounts are frozen pending some kind of investigation. Did you report something? Did you talk to someone? Chitty, I don't understand. What investigation? I haven't spoken to anyone about our accounts. She watched him pace, watched the calculations running behind his eyes. He was trying to figure out if she knew. trying to decide if this was her doing or just bad luck. Ngozi appeared in the doorway, her face pale. "What's happening?" "The accounts are frozen," Chidi snapped. "Someone reported fraudulent activity." "Fraudulent activity?" Amara let a tremor enter her voice. "Chidi, what's going on? Why would there be fraud on our accounts?" He turned on her, and for the first time, she saw something dangerous flash in his eyes. "I don't know, Amara. You tell me. Have you been talking to anyone? Your friends at work? Your lawyer?" "My lawyer? I don't have a lawyer. Why would I need a lawyer?" The room fell silent. Chidi stared at her, searching her face for any sign of deception. Amara held his gaze, letting him see nothing but confusion and concern. Finally, he looked away. "This is a mistake. It has to be a mistake. I'll go to the bank tomorrow and sort it out." "Should I come with you?" Amara asked. "No. I'll handle it." He stormed off to the bedroom, slamming the door behind him. Ngozi lingered in the doorway, watching Amara with suspicious eyes. "Sister, are you sure you didn't do anything?" Amara met her sister's gaze steadily. "Why would I freeze my own bank accounts, Ngozi? That doesn't make any sense." Ngozi bit her lip, then followed Chidi down the hall. Amara released a slow breath. That had been close. Too close. But she'd held her ground. In her pocket, her phone buzzed. A text from Barrister Okafor. "My investigator has information. Can you meet tomorrow afternoon? Important." Amara texted back, "Yes. Send me the address." The next day, Amara told Chidi she had to work late on an urgent audit. He barely acknowledged her, too stressed about the frozen accounts to care about her schedule. She met Barrister Okafor and the private investigator, a quiet man named Mr. Adeyemi, at a small office in Surulere. "What did you find?" Amara asked. Mr. Adeyemi opened a laptop and turned it toward her. "Your husband's real name is Chidi Okafor, not Okonkwo. He's been using the Okonkwo alias for the past 5 years. Before that, he lived in Port Harcourt under his real name." He clicked through several photos. Chidi entering different buildings, meeting with various people, sitting in cheap restaurants. "He doesn't go to work," Mr. Adeyemi continued. "He spends most of his time at a gambling hall in Yaba. He has significant debts with several bookmakers. I estimate he owes at least 6 million naira to various creditors." Amara felt sick. "He gambles compulsively from what I observed. He's there almost every day. The staff know him well." "What about the Mercedes? The expensive watch?" "Rented and fake, respectively. The car goes back to a rental company every night. The watch is a convincing replica that costs about 15,000 naira. Everything was a lie. Every single thing." Barrister Okafor leaned forward. "There's more, Amar. Mr. Adeyemi discovered that Chidi did this before. 6 years ago, he married a woman in Port Harcourt. Similar pattern. Charmed her, moved in, drained her accounts, and disappeared. She never reported it because she was too ashamed." "He's done this before?" Amara's voice was barely a whisper. "We found her. Her name is Patience Ease. She's agreed to testify if we press charges. She still has some evidence from her case, forged documents, bank statements. It matches exactly what he did to you." Amara sat back, processing this new information. Chidi wasn't just a thief. He was a professional con artist. This was his livelihood. She was just the latest mark. "I spoke to the EFCC this morning," Barrister Okafor said. "With this new information and all the evidence we've gathered, they're ready to move. They want to arrest him within the next 48 hours. 48 hours, Amara repeated. "Yes. Can you hold on that long?" Amara thought about going home to that house, to that man who'd systematically destroyed her life. 2 more nights of pretending. 2 more nights of playing the fool. "I can do it," she said. "But I want to be there when they arrest him. I want to see his face when he realizes it's over." Barrister Okafor smiled grimly. "I think that can be arranged." Amara's about to bring down a professional con artist who thought he'd found an easy target. If you're enjoying this story and can't wait to see justice served, smash that subscribe button now, The final confrontation is coming, and you won't believe how it ends. The next 2 days were the longest of Amara's life. She went through the motions, pretending to take the pills, recording conversations, gathering the last pieces of evidence. But the tension in the house was suffocating. Chidi had become paranoid and irritable. He spent hours on the phone with the bank, with Emeka the lawyer, with people whose voices Amara didn't recognize. She heard him pacing at night, cursing under his breath. The frozen accounts had thrown his entire plan into chaos. Ngozi was quieter than usual, watching Amara with nervous eyes. Several times, Amara caught her sister staring at her as if trying to figure out whether Amara knew something. On the second night, Chidi tried a different approach. He came into the bedroom with flowers and a box of chocolates, his expression soft and apologetic. "My love, I'm sorry I've been so stressed lately. This bank issue has been driving me crazy, but I shouldn't take it out on you." Amara looked up from her book, keeping her face neutral. "It's all right. I understand you're under pressure." "You're so patient with me," he said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "So understanding. I don't deserve you." The irony was almost too much to bear. He reached for her hand. "Amara, I need to ask you something important. There's a way we can unlock the accounts, but I need your help. I need you to come to the bank with me tomorrow and sign some papers. Just a formality to verify your identity and authorize the release of the funds." There was one last attempt to get what he needed. "Of course," Amara said sweetly. "Whatever you need. What time should we go?" Relief flooded his face. "Thank you, my love. 10 o'clock. I'll arrange everything." He kissed her forehead and left the room, practically bouncing with renewed confidence. Amara picked up her phone and texted Barrister Okafor. "He wants me to go to the bank tomorrow at 10 a.m. to sign papers. What should I do?" The response came quickly. "Perfect. EFCC will be ready. Go with him. We'll handle everything." That night, Chidi brought her the pill as usual. Amara went through the familiar routine, pretending to swallow, spitting it out later, listening to him and Ngozi celebrate in the guest room. She agreed to go to the bank. Chidi's voice was jubilant. "I knew she'd fall for it. Once we get her signature tomorrow, we can override the freeze. Emeka already prepared the paperwork." "Are you sure this will work?" Ngozi asked. "Of course. The bank thinks there's suspicious activity, but if Amara shows up in person and authorizes everything, they'll have to release the funds. Then we take what's left and disappear. By this time next week, we'll both be out of the country." Amara lay in the darkness, recording every word. Tomorrow it would all be over. The morning arrived bright and clear. Amara dressed carefully in a crisp white blouse and navy blue pencil skirt, professional, put together, strong. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. 3 months ago, she'd been naive and trusting, believing in the goodness of the people she loved. Now she was someone different. Harder, wiser, unbreakable. Chidi was already dressed in a suit, looking every inch the successful businessman he pretended to be. "Ready, my love?" "Ready," Amara said. They drove to the bank in silence. Ngozi had wanted to come, but Chidi had insisted she stay home. "Too many people will raise questions," he'd said. As they pulled into the parking lot, Amara saw Barrister Okafor's car parked across the street. She felt a surge of confidence. Everything was in place. Inside the bank, they were directed to a private conference room. A bank manager Amara didn't recognize greeted them, along with Mrs. Adele Eek from the fraud department. "Mr. and Mrs. Okonkwo, please have a seat," the manager said. Chidi sat down confidently, pulling out a folder of documents. "Thank you for meeting with us. I believe there's been a misunderstanding about our accounts. My wife is here to verify that all the transactions were authorized." The door opened, and 3 men in dark suits walked in. The lead man held up an identification badge. "Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. Mr. Chidi Okafor, also known as Chidi Okonkwo, you are under arrest for bank fraud, forgery, and theft by deception." The color drained from Chidi's face. "What? There must be some mistake." "No mistake, sir. Please stand up and place your hands behind your back." Chidi shot to his feet, his eyes wild. "Amara, what is this?" Tell them this is a mistake. Amara stood slowly, meeting his gaze with cold certainty. It's not a mistake, Chidi. I know everything. His face went from confused to shocked to furious in seconds. You knew. I've known for over a week. Every conversation you had with my sister. Every plan you made to steal from me and ruin me. Every single lie. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small voice recorder, holding it up. I have recordings of everything. Your plan to drain my accounts, forge my signature, steal my property, and make me look mentally unstable. All of it. One of the EFCC officers took the recorder from her hand. This will be entered as evidence. Amara, please. Chidi reached for her, but the officers grabbed his arms, forcing them behind his back. The metal handcuffs clicked into place. You drugged me, Amara said, her voice shaking with controlled rage. For 3 months, you poisoned me every night. You violated me while I was unconscious. You forged my signature. You stole over 11 million naira from me. And you planned to destroy my reputation and disappear. I can explain. There's nothing to explain. I have the toxicology reports showing what you gave me. I have the forged signatures analyzed by handwriting experts. I have photos from your own phone showing you positioning my unconscious body to sign documents. I have messages between you and Emeka planning my downfall. I have everything, Chidi. His shoulders slumped. The confident mask he'd worn for so long finally shattered, revealing the desperate criminal underneath. Mrs. Okonkwo, one of the officers said gently, we'll need you to come to the station to give a formal statement. I'm ready, Amara said. As they led Chidi toward the door, he turned back one last time. I loved you, he said quietly. Amara looked at him with disgust. You never loved me. You loved my money. There's a difference. They took him away. Mrs. Adelik approached Amara, her expression sympathetic. I'm so sorry you went through this, Mrs. Okonkwo. We've completed our investigation. The remaining funds in your accounts will be released back to you, and we'll work with the EFCC to recover as much of the stolen money as possible. Thank you, Amara said. Barrister Okafor entered the room, having watched the arrest from the observation area. That was incredibly brave, Amara. How are you feeling? Relieved, Amara said honestly. And angry, but mostly relieved. There's one more person we need to deal with, the lawyer reminded her. Amara nodded grimly. Ngozi. They arrived at Amara's house an hour later, accompanied by 2 police officers. Amara used her key to open the door. Ngozi was in the living room, pacing nervously. When she saw Amara walk in with the officers, her eyes went wide. Sister, what's happening? Where's Chidi? Chidi has been arrested, Amara said flatly. For fraud, forgery, and theft. And you're going to be arrested too. What? No, I didn't. Don't lie to me, Ngozi. Amara stepped closer and her sister backed away. I heard everything. Every conversation you had with Chidi about stealing my money. Every plan to help him forge my signature and drain my accounts. I know you were promised 2 million naira for your part in destroying me. Tears spilled down Ngozi's face. Sister, please, I didn't want to. You didn't want to what? Betray the person who raised you? Who paid for your education? Who gave you a home when you had nothing? Amara's voice cracked with emotion. I loved you, Ngozi. You were my sister. My family. And you sold me out for money. I was desperate. I had nothing, and you had everything. I worked for everything I have. I studied, I sacrificed, I built my career from the ground up. You could have done the same, but instead, you chose to steal from me. One of the police officers stepped forward. Ms. Ngozi Okoro, you're under arrest as an accessory to fraud and conspiracy to commit theft. You have the right to remain silent. No, please. Ngozi fell to her knees. Sister, please don't do this. I'm sorry. I'll pay you back, I'll do anything. Amara looked down at her sister, this woman she'd loved and trusted, and felt nothing but emptiness. You should have thought about that before you helped my husband drug me and steal my life, she said quietly. The officers handcuffed Ngozi and led her away, her cries echoing through the house. When they were gone, Amara stood alone in the living room of the house she'd shared with Chidi. The silence was deafening. Barrister Okafor placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You did the right thing." "I know," Amara said. "But it doesn't feel good." "Justice rarely does. But it's necessary." Amara looked around at the home that had been a prison for the past 3 months. "I need to get out of here. I can't stay in this house anymore." "I understand. Take whatever you need. We'll handle the rest. The property division, the divorce proceedings, everything. You just focus on healing." Amara nodded and went to the bedroom. She packed a bag with her important documents, some clothes, and personal items. As she was leaving, she saw the bottle of white pills on the nightstand. She picked it up and threw it across the room, watching it shatter against the wall. Then she walked out of the house and didn't look back. 6 months later, Amara sat in a bright, modern coffee shop in Victoria Island, sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Across from her sat Funmi and Barrister Okafor, both smiling as they reviewed documents spread across the table. "The court finalized everything yesterday," Barrister Okafor said, sliding a folder toward Amara. "Your divorce is official." The EFCC recovered 8.3 million naira from various accounts Chidi had hidden. "It's been transferred back to you, along with compensation from the bank for their failure to properly verify the forged signatures." Amara opened the folder, scanning the documents. After months of court proceedings, testimony, and legal battles, it was finally over. "What about Chidi and Ngozi?" she asked. Chidi was sentenced to 7 years in prison for fraud, forgery, and administering noxious substances. With the testimony from his previous victim in Port Harcourt, the judge showed no leniency. Emeka Nwosu, the lawyer who helped him, got 4 years for conspiracy and professional misconduct. He's been disbarred. "And Ngozi?" Barrister Okafor's expression softened slightly. 3 years. She cooperated with the investigation and showed genuine remorse, which reduced her sentence. She'll be eligible for parole in 18 months if she demonstrates good behavior. Amara felt a complex mix of emotions. Part of her was satisfied that justice had been served. Another part mourned the sister she'd lost, or perhaps the sister who had never really existed. "How are you feeling about all of it?" Funmi asked gently. "Honestly, I'm still processing." Amara took a sip of her cappuccino. "Some days I'm angry. Some days I'm sad. But mostly I'm grateful." "Grateful?" Funmi raised an eyebrow. "I know it sounds strange, but yes. Grateful that I discovered the truth before they could take everything. Grateful that I had the strength to fight back. Grateful for friends like you who stood by me." Amara reached across and squeezed Funmi's hand. "You saved yourself," Funmi said firmly. "You could have fallen apart when you discovered what they were doing, but instead, you became strategic. You gathered evidence, built a case, and took them down methodically. That takes incredible strength." "She's right," Barrister Okafor added. "I've represented many women in similar situations, and most of them panic and confront their husbands immediately. You stayed calm, played the long game, and won. That's remarkable." Amara smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes for the first time in months. "I learned something important through all of this. I learned that I'm stronger than I ever knew. And I learned to trust my instincts." "Speaking of instincts," Funmi said, pulling out her phone, "have you seen the feature article about your case? It's been shared thousands of times." She showed Amara the screen. There was an article titled, "How One Woman Outsmarted the Con Artist Who Drugged Her, A Story of Courage and Justice." The piece had been written by a prominent journalist who'd covered the trial. It detailed Amara's story, carefully protecting her privacy while highlighting how she'd methodically gathered evidence and brought down a serial fraudster. "It's inspired a lot of women to come forward about financial abuse," Funmi explained. 3 more victims of similar schemes have reported their cases to the EFCC in the past month alone. Your bravery gave them courage." Amara read through the article, her eyes misting. She hadn't thought about her story inspiring others. She'd simply been fighting for her own survival. "The EFCC wants to work with you," Barrister Okafor said. "They're creating an awareness campaign about financial fraud in relationships. They'd like you to speak at their events, share your experience, help educate other women about the warning signs. I'll do it, Amara said without hesitation. If my story can help even one person avoid what I went through, it's worth it. Later that week, Amara stood in front of her new apartment, a beautiful two-bedroom flat in Ikoyi with a view of the lagoon. It was smaller than the house she'd shared with Chidi, but it was hers. Truly hers. Paid for with her own money, in her name only, a fresh start. She'd sold the old house. She couldn't bear to live there anymore, couldn't walk through those rooms without remembering the betrayal. The new owners would move in next month, and Amara would never have to think about that place again. Inside her new home, boxes were still stacked in corners, waiting to be unpacked. But the living room was set up, cozy and welcoming. She'd decorated it herself, bright colors, comfortable furniture, plants on every surface. It felt like her, like the woman she was becoming. Her phone rang. It was her father calling from Enugu. "Papa," she answered warmly. "My daughter, how are you settling into the new place?" "It's wonderful, Papa. You'll have to visit soon and see it." I will. There was a pause. "Amara, I wanted to apologize again. I should have seen through that man. I approved of him, encouraged you to marry him." "Papa, stop. You couldn't have known. Chidi was a professional liar. He fooled everyone, including me. This wasn't your fault. Still, I'm your father. I should protect you." "You did protect me, Papa. You raised me to be strong, to stand up for myself, to never accept injustice. That's why I survived this. That's why I won." She heard her father's voice crack with emotion. "I'm so proud of you, NWM. Your mother would be proud too." Tears slipped down Amara's cheeks. "Thank you, Papa. That means everything to me." After they hung up, Amara walked to the window and looked out at the city. Lagos spread before her, chaotic and beautiful, full of possibility. She thought about the woman she'd been 6 months ago, trusting, naive, asleep to the danger in her own home. That woman was gone. In her place was someone wiser, harder, but also more compassionate. Someone who understood that betrayal could come from the people you loved most, but also that you could survive it and emerge stronger. 2 weeks later, Amara stood on a stage at the EFCC headquarters in Abuja, facing an audience of over 200 women. Some were victims of financial fraud. Others were there to learn how to protect themselves. All of them looked at her with a mixture of sympathy and admiration. "My name is Amara," she began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "And I'm here to tell you about the night I discovered my husband had been drugging me." She told them everything. The sleeping pills, the forged signatures, the stolen money, the betrayal by her own sister. She spoke about the fear, the rage, the determination to fight back. "The hardest part wasn't discovering the betrayal," she said. "It was having to pretend I didn't know. To go home every night to the people who were destroying me and act like everything was normal. To take those pills and spit them out, knowing that if I made one mistake, if they suspected I knew, everything could fall apart." The room was silent, every woman hanging on her words. But I survived. And I won. Not because I was special or uniquely strong, but because I refused to be a victim. I gathered evidence. I built a case. I found allies. I trusted myself. She paused, looking out at the sea of faces. If you're in a situation like I was, if someone is taking advantage of you, stealing from you, abusing your trust, please know that you have power. You can fight back. Document everything. Take photos, make recordings, save messages. Find a lawyer you trust. Go to the police. And above all, don't blame yourself for being deceived. Predators are skilled at what they do. It's not your fault that someone chose to betray you, but it is your choice whether you let them get away with it. The applause that followed was thunderous. Women stood, some wiping tears from their eyes. After her speech, dozens of them approached her, sharing their own stories, thanking her for her bravery. One young woman, probably in her mid-20s, grabbed Amara's hand. "My boyfriend has been pressuring me to give him access to my savings account. I thought I was being paranoid for refusing. But after hearing your story, I know I'm right to protect myself. Thank you." Amara squeezed her hand. Trust your instincts. Boys. They're trying to protect you. That evening, Amara returned to Lagos exhausted but fulfilled. As she entered her apartment, she noticed a letter that had been slipped under her door. It was from Ngozi. Amara's first instinct was to throw it away unread. But curiosity won out. She opened the envelope and unfolded the single page. Sister, I know I have no right to call you that anymore. I know I betrayed you in the worst possible way. Every day in here, I think about what I did, and I'm consumed with shame. I can't take back what I did. I can't undo the pain I caused you. But I want you to know that I'm truly sorry. Not because I got caught. Not because I'm in prison. But because I hurt someone who only ever loved me. You were right about everything. I was jealous of you, bitter that you had success while I struggled. Chitty played on that jealousy, convinced me that you owed me, that taking from you was just evening the scales. I was stupid and cruel, and I will regret it for the rest of my life. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even deserve your forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that you didn't deserve what we did to you. You were the best sister anyone could ask for, and I threw that away for money I never even received. I hope you're healing. I hope you're finding happiness again. And I hope that one day, maybe years from now, you can think of me without hatred. Your sister, Ngozi. Amara read the letter twice, then carefully folded it and placed it in a drawer. She didn't know if she would ever forgive Ngozi. She didn't know if she could. But she knew she wouldn't let bitterness consume her. She'd been through too much, fought too hard, to let the past poison her future. 3 months later, Amara sat in a boardroom at her firm, surrounded by senior partners. The managing director smiled at her from across the table. Amara, we've been extremely impressed with your work over the past year. Your dedication, your integrity, your analytical skills, they're exactly what we need in our leadership team. We'd like to offer you the position of financial director. Amara felt joy surge through her chest. Financial director. A promotion she'd been working toward for years. I accept, she said, her smile radiant. Thank you for this opportunity. After the meeting, Funmi found her in the hallway and pulled her into a hug. You did it. You actually did it. We did it, Amara corrected. I couldn't have survived any of this without you. So what's next? Funmi asked. You've got the new apartment, the promotion, justice served. What's your next chapter? Amara thought about it. Healing. Growing. Maybe eventually, when I'm ready, loving again. But this time, with my eyes wide open. You'll know when you're ready, Funmi said wisely. I will, Amara agreed. But right now, I'm happy just being me. Just being free. That night, Amara stood on her balcony, looking out at the Lagos skyline. The city twinkled with a million lights, each one representing a life, a story, a struggle, a triumph. She thought about the woman she'd been when this nightmare began, naive and trusting, asleep to the danger in her own home. She thought about the woman she'd become, awake, aware, unbreakable. The journey had been painful. The betrayal had nearly destroyed her. But she'd survived. More than survived, she'd thrived. And if her story could help even one person recognize the warning signs, trust their instincts, and fight back against those who tried to abuse their trust, then every moment of pain had been worth it. Amara raised her glass of wine to the city, to herself, to the future she was building with her own hands. To new beginnings, she whispered. And somewhere in the night, the city whispered back, to new beginnings. Amara's story reminds us that betrayal can come from the people we trust most, but we have the power to fight back and reclaim our lives. Have you ever had to rebuild after betrayal? What did you learn from it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story moved you, inspired you, or opened your eyes to the warning signs of manipulation and fraud, please subscribe to this channel. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Together, we can help protect others from experiencing what Amara went through. Remember, trust your instincts, protect your assets, and never let anyone make you feel powerless in your own life. You are stronger than you know. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay safe and stay strong.